Hey guys, welcome another week to J&M Sports Talk. Of course, I'm Jonathan. You know Mark. We got another great week of college football to talk about. So, Mark, what all is on the docket for the day?
Got a good show prepared for you guys this week. We're going to start out recapping some good games from last week. Then we're going to do our Player of the Week awards.
Okay.
Then we're going to do some quick picks, our popular quick segment.
Yeah.
And then we're going to preview some really good games coming up. A couple of top 10 matchups, actually.
Okay.
So let's start it off.
All right.
The marquee game from last week, Michigan and Penn State. How did that one end up finishing?
Yeah, this finished up in a lot of ways like we expected, but my biggest takeaway from it, I was excited. We finally saw that Penn State we've been know was coming. They've been playing really good ball against some not as good teams. You have people like, oh, why is this Penn State team up so high? They haven't played anybody. Well, this is why. We knew it was coming. We knew the capability they had on offense, especially. Their defense played really well as well, but this is where they're going to show up the reason why they've been up at the top so long. Everyone was the biggest takeaway. I think a lot of people were high on Barkley. I thought McSorley probably stole the show. He had a great game from start to finish. How do you think it went?
Yeah, I think we both expected that the output. I mean, Michigan, at the end of the day, just isn't a really good football team. They're anemic on offense, and they proved that. And Penn State is a really good team. They proved that as well. So this is really where we pointed to them in the start of their season, Penn State. They played Michigan last week. They've got Ohio State, which we'll preview that game later in the show. And then they have Michigan State, which is, you mentioned before the show, they're undefeated in Big Ten play.
Yep.
So a lot of people didn't see that coming. But
Really
Michigan, just to recap this game, they were 6 for 16 on third downs, which is horrible. Penn State ended up being 4 of 7, which that speaks to how well they were able to move the football. They didn't get in many third down situations. So good solid win for Penn State. That'll start the momentum going into this week against their showdown with Ohio State. So another good game was the USC Notre Dame game. Good one-sided, that is. Notre Dame ended up crushing USC.
Yeah, we've been talking about like this USC team just keeps grinding things out, finding ways to stay in games. Well, this was the game the bottom fell out. They couldn't do anything. They made so many mistakes in the first half of this game. It was over at halftime. They gave them the ball 2 or 3 times with less than 50 yards to go for the score. Went to lead that 28-0 halftime lead. Now it seems like this is about it for USC.
Yeah, I mean they certainly haven't met expectations this year. There's games where we expected them to blow teams out, and it was close. This is one of those we were thinking this might be a closer game, but it was anything but. USC turned it over 3 times in the game. Notre Dame didn't have any turnovers, so. I mean, it's hard when you lose the turnover battle by 3 turnovers. It's hard to win any football game. But one of the biggest keys for me in this one was Notre Dame and their ability to run the football. USC, with all that talent on their defensive line and linebackers, they just weren't able to stop Notre Dame.
Yeah, I think some of that had to do with the fact, how much of the percentage of the time were they on the field though too? I mean, with those you mentioned the turnovers. Turnovers, the one thing that stops offense sooner. That means the defense has to go back out there. They by the halftime they were gassed. You could tell.
Yeah, and at that point, Notre Dame they had almost 400 rushing yards against USC.
Yeah,
that's just running at will. And like you said, I mean, it wears the team down, especially in the second half. So good win for Notre Dame. They are in both of our top 10s this week.
Yep.
Oklahoma State and Texas, man, that game, I was not expecting it to be that close. Ended up going into overtime, and Oklahoma State won 13-10. Jonathan, what were your thoughts on that one?
I think I said it'd be close last week.
Did you?
Yeah.
13-10?
Never got that close. I didn't think you'd go in overtime, but I said it'd be a close game.
I thought you said it was going to be a shootout.
Okay, that's wrong. But hey, shootouts can still be close, right? Anyways, there's 2 sides of this. One, it's OK State. One good thing you can say is their defense finally showed up. And their defense made some plays to win the game. They weren't
Right.
relying on their offense to get it done because they would have relied on them, they would have lost. But give it up to Texas. This is another game where they're probably outmatched in most phases of the game. Yet they step up and they make a competitive game and they give themselves at the end of the game a chance to win. They're consistently there at the end to have a chance. And that's one good thing they can take from this. I'm sure they're not happy that they've got another close loss, but from where this team was at the start of the year and where they are now and they're progressing, I think it takes us in a lot better spot than their record indicates. I really like them moving forward. They're only going to get better.
Yeah, they've competed in these big games too, especially as of late. But Ellinger, he's gonna wish he had that pass back. It just I'm referencing the pass that ended the game in overtime. It looked like he thought the receiver was going to cut into the end zone, and he just kind of tossed it up. And this was on third down.
Yeah.
And the receiver was not on the same page. He stayed put, and the Oklahoma State defender just reached out and caught the ball in the game.
Yeah, I think if he had shoots back, he probably would have just thrown it away and settled for the field goal to keep the game going.
Yeah, and that's one of those things, like the more games you play, the more snaps you get, the more experience, you just don't make those type of mistakes.
For sure.
So, but good win for Oklahoma State. Got to give them credit for pounding it out and getting the W. It's not easy to win on the road.
Right, especially traditionally play a house like Texas. That's a big game. Even no matter where Texas is, going to play a game at Texas is always a big deal.
Yeah. All right, let's next talk about SEC matchup.
Okay.
LSU and Ole Miss. There was some big injury news from this game.
Yeah, unfortunately, it seems like Ole Miss, they can't catch a break. And this week, they finally had things going a little bit, I thought. They're trending up as a team, I thought, finally getting things going. And they lose Shea Patterson, their star quarterback. He's going to be out for the rest of the year. So, unfortunate news for them. On the other side of it, the LSU Tigers look like they finally are healthy, and they're playing like we thought they would. They played a really good game, start to finish, probably their best game, both sides of the ball, I thought, and they got a well-earned W on the road.
Yeah, people are starting to think of LSU as the top contender in the West with Alabama. So they've rolled off 3 straight wins. It got lots of momentum. They get a bye week, and then there's that big matchup with Alabama. So we'll see how it all shakes out. But another good win for LSU.
It was
on the road. All right, let's talk about the Louisville FSU game. That one, it was a close game all the way up into the end. Blackman, the FSU quarterback, they started doing some more read option stuff in the fourth quarter. I guess they were trying to catch Louisville off guard. They really hadn't done it all game long. And they ended up having a mishandling of the read option, and Blackman fumbled. They were right there. It looked like they were going to either kick a field goal to win the game or even score a touchdown. And Louisville, they take the ball down the field and score. And the rest is history. Another close loss for FSU in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, like Lamar definitely knows who he is in that offense. So when they needed that one score, they knew where to go to. Yeah, it's just one thing. Although we were talking about the team beforehand, there's a lot of frustration from the FSU fans. This is another close loss. It's part of the territory with this now young team. They've got a lot of young playmakers that their focus now on is getting them ready for the future and not so much this year. Yeah, it's gonna be hard for them to even make a bowl this year. We joked they might get the 5 and get lucky with some bowl taking them for at least their namesake to sell tickets or something. But yeah, in the ACC having a lot of good teams. But yeah, better days are coming. But I know there's some fans even upset wanting the defensive coordinator fired, and I'm like, this is a guy that you're playing a team, Louisville, who's bringing mostly all of its weapons back from last year, that hung 63 points on you last year. And you cut that over half and they only scored 31 points this game. I would take that. If I was when you're both teams are pretty much bringing the same side of the ball back, same defense, game offense, I would take that. That would be an improvement. Something to look positively on that game. But no, of course, because it was a loss and it was another game, they feel like They should have won.
This might sound crazy, but FSU, they've had so many close losses. It's been one or two plays in the
Yeah.
game that causes their downfall. We could just as easily be talking about them as a top 10 team with no losses or maybe one loss.
They could have beat Bama and lost. They could have got that one or two plays against Bama and still lost Francois and be in that situation. It's just
yeah.
unfortunate.
So I think FSU fans, just need to be patient. They got a young nucleus of players, and I like FSU going forward. But it's been a struggle this season.
Yeah, I've been high on Cam Akers. Yeah, I thought he had a freshman back step a little. He's been playing well the last few weeks. And it's part of the territory again with these young players. Is you're going to go through some growing pains. They're going to look like they're going to flash that talent you see in them. You're going to get all excited, and then they're going to go make a bonehead play the next, and you're like, get this kid off the field. He doesn't deserve a scholarship. But it's going to get better for FSU fans. This year, maybe not, but hey, maybe you can beat Florida at the end of the year, ruin their season a little more. We definitely think both Florida State's going to look good the next couple of years.
Oh yeah, for sure. And Francois, if he comes back, I mean, it might be a quarterback competition.
Yeah, I would say even if he doesn't come back, I like what I'm seeing out of Blackman, the skill set. It's just literally experience and film time.
Yep. And getting in the weight room and putting some weight on.
Yeah, that might help a little too.
that would definitely help with that offensive line.
Oh yeah.
All right, let's talk about our Player of the Week awards.
Right.
Lots of players to choose from. Jonathan, who did you go with your freshman?
My freshman, I'm going to give it to Grant Delpit, the LSU safety. He's been playing really well for a depleted secondary in LSU. They're getting healthy all around, but he had a really great game. He actually led his team in tackles. He had 9 tackles, and he also had a deflection and interception for the game. They're winning against Ole Miss. So I'm going to give it to his freshman, stepping up, being a team leader. Who did you have?
It's a good effort. I went with Josh Jackson, Virginia Tech quarterback. He didn't have to do much. They creamed North Carolina, but he had 3 passing touchdowns in the game. I like Virginia Tech. I mean, they've got a good defense. They got good special teams. With him at quarterback, I think they're a contender in the ACC to get to the championship game.
If Kelly's hurt, you definitely got to consider them one of the top teams. For Clemson being hurt, you don't think there's anything new if you need to talk about your boy after a while? It's been a few weeks.
Well, 3 passing touchdowns. He deserves an honorable mention in the show. All right, who'd you go with your offensive player of the week?
I talked about already. I went Todd McSorley, quarterback, Penn State. His numbers were just about as good as Barkley's rushing. But as far as his passing is, he went 17 for 26. He passed for 282 yards, had a touchdown. He also had 11 carries for 76 yards and 3 touchdowns rushing the ball. There was a lot of times where they're running a little option, and Michigan was keying on Barkley, and it was just giving him wide lanes to take advantage of. That was part of them not getting a lot of third downs. Was a lot of those second and mid-range, they'd run the option, and Michigan would attack Barkley, and he just skewed out for the first. So.
Yeah, I mean, he had a good game in the bowl game against USC. I think he gets overshadowed because of Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, for sure. They might be the best quarterback running back tandem in the country.
It'll be interesting to see if they both get an invite at the end of the season. If Penn State goes undefeated, they're impressive in their last few games.
Yeah, I'm not going to give anything away, but I have more to say about this later on the show.
Okay. All right. Can't wait. You got us on the edge of our seats. My offensive player of the week, I actually couldn't narrow it down. It's been the year of the running backs for me. Josh Adams, Notre Dame running back, almost 200 rushing yards, 3 TDs. He crushed the USC defense. Darius Geis, the LSU running back. He had 276 rushing yards and a touchdown. He really needed a game like that. Coming into the season, he was a Heisman pretender. I don't know. He just has had a rough season. So the Ole Miss defense, he had an opportunity to go out there and get a lot of yards. So very impressed by those 2 running backs this week.
Yeah, good for him. Not only the fact that He finally had that big game. The competition may not have been there, but it's still SEC defensive line. They got some talent there, but it was good for him that he's been banged up. So the fact that a guy who's been hurt actually had a game and go out and be himself is going to do a lot for his confidence moving forward.
Yeah, and the huge game against Bama is their next game.
Mhm.
So we'll see if he can duplicate that. That'd be tough sledding against that Bama D.
He does. He goes 280 against them. I'm gonna say that'll be saying a lot. He might get himself back in the Heisman consideration.
Good. All right, who's your defensive player of the week?
All right, I'm gonna stick with Penn State a little bit. Yeah, they looked so good the other night. I'm gonna go with Jason Kabedinda, their linebacker. He led the team with tackles with 13, and he also had a sack. So he had a really good game and shutting down that poor Michigan offense.
Yeah. Poor
13
Michigan.
tackles. 13 tackles is always nice.
Yeah.
Who you're playing.
For my defensive player of the week, I went with Jeffrey Allison, the linebacker from Fresno State. Fresno State, they surprised a lot of people. They beat who did they beat? San Diego State. Oh man.
I thought you were saying something like before this. I was like, okay.
Yeah, 27-3. San Diego State. They were ranked earlier in the year. They had Rashad Penny, one of the best running backs in the country.
They're ranked in this game too.
Yeah, were they?
Yeah,
Were they still ranked? I know
yeah.
they lost a couple weeks back to Boise State.
Yes.
So I wasn't
But
sure.
they were still on that line of being a top 20 team.
Yeah.
They're out of it now.
So Jeffrey Allison, he had 10 total tackles, 9 solo
Mhm.
in the game, and a tackle for loss. Big stat in that one, Rashad Penny, who I just mentioned, only had 69 rushing yards. So he, a few weeks ago, before they had those losses, I mean, he was a Heisman candidate. Got to give props to Allison, the sophomore linebacker. All right, let's move on to our quick pick segment for the week. For those of you who haven't seen the show before, I'm going to throw a matchup out there, and Jonathan's going to give us a quick pick for the game. So, you ready?
I'm ready now.
Okay, start the clock. FSU and Boston College. This is actually a Friday game.
You know what? This is one of those games where I think Florida State's going to have a chance to win this game. But being at home, I'm going to Boston College. They've been playing really well the last few weeks.
Okay. Texas Tech and Oklahoma.
Well, this one's another really tough one. Oklahoma has not been impressive the last few weeks. I've been going back and forth on this one. I'm going to go with Oklahoma because it's at home, but I would not be surprised if Texas Tech scores them.
All right, Tennessee and Kentucky.
It's at home, so I'm going to go with Kentucky in this one.
All right.
If Butch Jones isn't fired by then, I'll be surprised. But
USC traveling to Arizona State.
This one's another tough one. I really like what Arizona State did a couple weeks ago beating Washington, but USC is a different type of game a little bit, but they've been struggling so much. This is a tough one. If USC starts turnovers more, Arizona State's going to win this game. So I'm going to go with Arizona State at home.
Oh,
I'm not feeling
okay.
too confident.
All right, let's get that one on record
Okay.
there. We'll bring that one up next week. Washington State traveling to Arizona.
Yeah, this one is another really tough one. Washington State, they beat a bad Colorado team last week. Not by much. In fact, it was bad weather. The offense still looked struggling. And Mike Leach actually had his offense doing up downs on the sidelines midway through the second quarter. That's not a good look. And when you're facing a team like Arizona, who seems to be doing everything right, the quarterback actually threw some passes last week. Everyone thought he was running the ball. Yeah, Tate, he actually had some passes last week. I like Arizona in this one.
Arizona's a hot team right now.
Yeah.
They had a close victory against Cal, but they definitely have their offense going.
But Cal's a really good team.
They are,
on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, Cal has had one of the tougher schedules this year too in college football. All right, let's move on to our pick segment. We've got some really good games to preview this week. You want to make sure you make some time for some college football this week.
For sure.
All right, let's talk about our first matchup. This is a rivalry game, Georgia and Florida. Jonathan, who do you see winning this game?
Yeah, this one, my head's it's easy Georgia wins this game, but my only hindrance is the fact that it's Florida. Florida will, anytime you think it's a safe pick, and then you see Florida's the opponent, not so safe. But Florida lately, they've been trending losing these close ones instead of winning them this year. So I'm going to go with Georgia. My only other hesitance is I'm worried a little bit that soon we're going to see Jake Fromm step back. He's played so well as a true freshman. Can he keep that going the whole year? And on top of that, we joked a few weeks ago. Clemson has a knack for pulling a Clemson. Georgia has that same mentality. It seems like every time they have a good team, Georgia does something to ruin their year themselves. And usually, this is that game that they stumble. So, with that being said, I like Georgia. They should win by multiple scores. They should win, but yeah.
Yeah, the thing about this game, I agree with everything you just said. Georgia, they struggled in this game, especially as of late. And the winner of this game normally goes to the SEC championship. Now, here's the scary thing. Georgia could probably lose this game and still go to the SEC championship. Yeah. There's just a lot of teams in the East that are struggling. You mentioned Fromm. You're thinking that he might have a hiccup in this game. That's fair to say. I mean, Florida's defense, they've had a week to heal up. They can score. Sometimes it's been dependent on their defense scoring for them to put points on the board.
Yeah.
So in light of all that, I say all that to say I've been really impressed with Georgia. They've been the number one team in my eyes all season long. They've had the best quality of victories. I see a complete team on offense and defense and special teams. Their special teams has been good this year too. So I like Georgia to win this game. I think it'll be close just because it's a rivalry.
Yeah, my only other thought is this is something I didn't talk about before. This kind of just came to my head. Yeah, this might be the most hostile environment Fromm has seen all year. Think about how well Georgia's. It's a neutral site, yes, but you see how well Georgia's fans have been traveling this year. One of the biggest things we were joking about also was they took over Notre Dame. That was a home game for Georgia up in South Bend. But there's other games like Vanderbilt they took over because Vanderbilt's not going to bring the talent. But they've had a lot of their better opponents that usually have a good fan base at home this year. So the fact that they're going to be a neutral site and it's going to be straight 50-50 in the state of Florida, and usually that game tends to, no matter how the game's going, might be 10 more of a Florida 60-40 most years. This might be the closest he's had to a hostile environment this year, which could play a factor in it too.
I don't know about that. I think the Georgia fans are gonna show up.
I'm not saying they won't, but I'm just saying traditionally this game's always been a little lenient toward Florida, but compared to their other road games, there's gonna be less Georgia fans.
We'll see. Yeah. I don't know. They might buy those Florida fans out of their tickets. I just don't see Florida's offense manufacturing enough points to win this game, so I got Georgia.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with
that. Yeah, we agree on this pick. We agree on this pick. All right, let's talk about a pick we don't agree on. Okay. NC State and Notre Dame. Who do you see winning that one?
I've got NC State.
Okay. Yep. State your reasoning.
Bradley Chubb and that defensive line.
You got the
this might be the best defensive line Notre Dame's seen this year. Yeah,
that's true.
Other than Georgia, of course. This Notre Dame, as good as they've been this year, they're really one-dimensional. So they've ran for over 2,500 yards, but they've only passed for maybe 500. They don't really pass the ball much. They're a running team, and then defensively they have some coverage issues, and NC State likes to spread the ball around. They've got some great backs as well. They're just a good, solid team, and if it gets late in the fourth quarter, and I think they'll have a good chance of winning this game. Isn't late close.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this matchup. This is I think both of these teams match up really well against each other. I look for NC State to focus on stopping the run, and we'll see how Wimbush does, the Notre Dame QB. I think because the game is at home, I like Notre Dame. They've played very well at home this season. I view Georgia so highly. I mean, Notre Dame almost beat Georgia at home. That's how I view them playing. So Notre Dame, the running game, I think it's going to be enough for them to get by. They're not going to be so dependent on the pass. I just look for a continuation of last week and the beatdown of USC. I think that game gave them a lot of momentum. NC State, we'll see where they're at. I wouldn't be surprised if NC State wins the game, but I'm going Notre Dame in this one because of the home field advantage.
Okay, fair enough. I'll take that W. All right.
Who's winning in the pick'em challenge this year?
I've had 2 bad weeks. Okay.
All right. Just got to pull that up. All right, let's talk about a game we agree on.
All
All right, Georgia Tech and Clemson.
Yeah.
Who's going to win that one?
So, I mean, take we agree. So, I guess I'm assuming we're picking Clemson here. I mean, Clemson's looked so well all year. They have that one hiccup, Syracuse, which without Kelly Bryant, I'm giving them a pass on. I still have them in the top 10 for now.
Yeah, me too.
They've looked really well on defense other than that one game. And, because of that one game, though, I picked Georgia Tech. They one of the biggest, I think this is more of a matchup loss than it is where this team is. We don't know where Kelly Bryant is. He's going to be 100%. But my biggest issue with them moving forward is this defense. They struggled against a very mobile, athletic quarterback in Syracuse. And now they're facing a Georgia Tech team that instead of last game, they would focus toward the edge. Georgia Tech is going to attack their edge. And they struggled against Syracuse. How are they going to handle this Georgia Tech team that is going to be putting extra bodies on that edge to give them room? And Marshall's much faster than Syracuse quarterback. So I really like Georgia Tech matching up in this game. Even though it's at Clemson, Kelly Bryant's health will have a say in this. If he's healthy and able to, even his ankle injury is better, he's able to be mobile and can keep the Georgia Tech offense off the field, Clemson's going to have a good chance in this game. But if Georgia Tech ends up grinding this game out, attacking that edge constantly, they're going to break the will of Clemson over time. Because if there's one issue Clemson does have this year as well, is their depth on defense. They've got a really good defense. We're talking how great they've been playing. But there's not much depth, especially on their D-line. And when you face an option team like Georgia Tech, they're going to go deep in your depth, win or lose. So, with that being said, I like Georgia Tech, and this is a matchup thing with me.
Yeah, I mean, you could look at it the other way. Like, Clemson has had 2 weeks to prepare for that Georgia Tech option attack. But, that early on in the season, we were talking about Clemson just getting better every game. But it's amazing what one loss can factor in. The biggest thing for me is Kelly Bryant's health. I mean, it was very clear early on in that game that he wasn't 100%. He wasn't running around outside the pocket, that sort of thing. So I don't look for that to be completely fixed, at a possible concussion as well.
Yeah.
In just 2 weeks. I mean, that's a lot to ask from a young QB. So I've got Georgia Tech in this game too. I'm in a complete agreement with what Jonathan said about breaking the will. I think in the fourth quarter, you're going to really start to see the depth play a factor. And Georgia Tech's going to shorten the game. They're gonna pound it out. So Clemson's only going to have a certain amount of opportunities on offense, and I just don't think they're going to capitalize on them.
Yep. They're going to need heavily on the running backs stepping up to have a chance. They're going to need some special teams. Will be key in this game, giving them good advantage. Even when the field making a good return or something, to give them field advantage back, turn the field. So it's going to be definitely things like that they're going to need to capitalize on, have a chance.
Yeah, I don't think either of us would be surprised if Clemson won at home.
No.
But we're both picking Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about a couple of Big 12 matchups. First one up is TCU and Iowa State. Iowa State actually got ranked this week.
Yeah.
They've had a couple of good
them.
wins, so good for their program. Jonathan, how do you see this one playing out?
They won't be ranked next week. No, I kid. Yeah, this is going to be a really good game. I expect it to be a lot closer than a lot of people are thinking. But TCU is so good. It's hard to pick against them. Like I say, Clemson, one game can change everything, of course. In college football, we know that. Just talking about Clemson a second ago. But right now, they're the best team in the country, I think, top to bottom. Both sides of the ball playing extremely well. They don't make a lot of mistakes. They're really calculated with their attack on offense and defense. And they only played Kansas last week, which Kansas is not the best team. They held them to 21 yards last week. I mean, that's just something you normally don't do that often. It's just an example of how great they've been playing defensively.
Yeah.
So I got TCU.
Yeah, you talk about TCU. I mean, they've been probably the most consistent team in the Big 12, and it doesn't matter if they're playing on the road, they're playing at home. They've been consistent. So Kenny Hill, he's had a really bunch of good games back to back. Iowa State, it's worth mentioning. Kyle Kemp, ever since he took over at QB, their offense has been almost unstoppable.
Right.
So they had a really good win against Texas Tech last week. So I think this game will be a little bit closer than people think, but I like TCU.
I think it'll be a lot similar to the TCU go into Oklahoma State earlier in the year. That offense was knocking the doors down on everybody, and the defense they figured out what they did and they just made stops when they needed to. Got them in third and longs, got them predictable on offense enough that they could make some stops and got a lead and just kept it.
If there's a defense in the Big 12 that I would expect to stop Iowa State's offense, it would be TCU's. Mm-hmm. So I think TCU will win this game. It might go into the fourth quarter, though. It might be a close one.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll definitely want to tune in for that one. All right, let's talk about our second Big 12 matchup.
All right.
Oklahoma State and West Virginia. This one could be a tough game to pick.
Yeah, this one, because it's on the road, OK State, I think we might have a little more trouble. But my biggest question of this game is which West Virginia defense is going to show up. The last 2 weeks, both home and away, they've struggled to get out the ground going on defense. And this is Oklahoma State's one of those teams where I think I'm picking them because I think this is going to be a pride game for them. I think, last week Texas showed their vulnerability. They could have lost. Yep. If they would have lost, it would have been the offensive fault of Mason Rudolph. A lot like TCU, he put the blame on himself after that game. And what they do right after that, he responded at the second best game of the year after that loss to TCU. So I like that trend to continue. And if West Virginia's defense doesn't show up from the start, this might not be a close one. Oklahoma State may blow them out at home, but I don't think I think they'll come enough play. I like West Virginia and the style of defense they play. They attack the offense really well. There'll be a lot of opportunities for them that can be 50-50. Either it could big play either way. They take some chances on defense, which I do like. With that being said, I like Oklahoma State in a good game, but getting the road win.
Okay, so just to get this straight, you think it could be a blowout, but you don't think it will be?
No, I'm not saying it's going to be a blowout. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying but there's factors that if West Virginia doesn't come ready to play like they failed to do the first few halves, it could turn to a blowout.
Yeah,
that's my point. They've been playing better second half defense.
I wanted to dig in deeper on that point. So in their first game in the season, West Virginia, they got off to a really slow start against Virginia Tech, and then it was a good game at the end. But if they had started out quicker, they might have even won that game.
Right.
Virginia Tech. Going back a couple weeks ago, they ended up beating Texas Tech, but they got off to a really slow start.
Texas Tech, the only thing that saved West Virginia that game was it went to halftime. Texas Tech was knocking on the door again right before half.
That was a crazy tale of two halves there. So I think what you're saying is that Oklahoma State, if they get off to a fast start, it might be hard for West Virginia to recover.
Right, because I think this is going to be one of those things. It's going to be a pride game for them. I think that we're going to see a good Oklahoma State offensive performance. My question is whether it's close or not. Is if West Virginia can start the game where they play. They don't have a slow start like they've been having. That was my point.
Yeah. For me, I'm actually going to go with West Virginia in this game, and I think it's going to be a really close game, but the reason that I'm picking them is because it's at home. Morgantown, they've got a really good home advantage there. You look at last week, Oklahoma State, they struggled on the road at QB. Mason Rudolph, I was expecting him to have a really good game. I think I saw a stat where he had like 5 games of 3 touchdowns or more, or something like that. So So he very much struggled last week. So I would look for that to continue. I don't think West Virginia's defense is awesome. I think they've struggled a lot this year. But I think they'll be geared up for this game. And I'm going to go with West Virginia in this one. I think it's going to be a really close game. Wouldn't be surprised if Oklahoma State won. But I got to go with the home team in this one.
One quick point, though, other than just scoring defense, just put that aside the last few years, West Virginia, for a long time, they've had a very good defense that was not a stat defense. It's more of just their defense is more of a scheme defense. It plays well, and they're known for their scheme a little bit more. So the stats are not ever really there for them. So I wouldn't affect that much.
Right. All right, let's talk about our marquee matchup. This one, I'm really looking forward to this game.
Mm-hmm.
Probably could be the Big Ten matchup of the year. It's going to determine who goes to the Big Ten championship game against, we both think, Wisconsin. You can go ahead and pencil them in.
Yeah, they've only got one or two more tests, really, that you would expect, unless they don't show up one week. But
yeah, so Penn State going to the Shoe and playing Ohio State. Jonathan, who do you have winning this one?
Well, I would say that one, I really like the way they played last week, and I expect it to continue. I'd say I'd talk about more later, but I really think will be an opportunity for McSorley to finally get out of Barkley's shadow.
Okay.
This is going to be a really big game, really big matchup. Ohio State, their biggest strength is their defensive line. Their biggest weakness is that secondary. So I feel like they're going to be able to stop the run. Barkley slow him down a bit. Barkley will probably have a good game because he just will. But they're going to be able to make some stops on the run game. So it's going to be up to McSorley in his passing. And that's where I think this Ohio State team is going to struggle. They're going to have to deal with McSorley, who not only the fact that he can make, especially last week, he put on a clinic all game of making over the shoulder throws to guys right where it needed to be, right over the defender's head, didn't have a chance. And then also, Penn State's got some really great jump receivers that he can just put the 50-50 ball up to, and they go up and they will make the play. He trusts them to go get the ball, and they're consistently doing it. One of the announcers was joking. One of the guys played volleyball in high school, as well as basketball. He's just one of the all-around guys that he just goes up for jump balls all the time. And I think that's going to be really the biggest key to this game. And if McSorley goes out there and he just throws like he did last week against this Ohio State team, and Barkley doesn't do much on the run, everyone's going to see what we've been talking about McSorley all the time, being just right there, just as good in Barkley's shadow.
Okay, I'm going a not so fast, my friend, in this one. I like Ohio State in this game. I think people have forgotten about Ohio State. They had a rough start to the beginning of the season. They weren't very impressive. They had that loss at home against Oklahoma. And ever since then, they've quietly been scoring 50 to 60 points on offense and shutting teams down on defense. So I think this is going to be a coming-out party for Ohio State. They got J.T. Barrett, who's been playing well as of late. Their last game, he had 7 touchdowns. Another factor to consider is Ohio State had an extra week to prepare for this game. They had a bye week last week. It's going to be at their place. I don't think Penn State has faced a really good offense yet. You talked about Michigan last week. Yeah, that was a great win, but Michigan stinks on offense. The Iowa game that they struggle with on the road, Iowa, they don't put up but 20 points a game. So I really look for Penn State's defense to be challenged in this one, like they haven't been challenged before yet. So I like Ohio State in this game. I think they're going to put up points. I think this will be a close game. I'm not saying this is going to be a blowout by any means. I'm really looking forward to it. But I like Ohio State. Run game, pass game. I think they'll show up here, and I look for Ohio State to get the W.
That's fair enough.
And didn't last year Penn State win this game?
Yeah.
So I think the revenge factor should play into this one as well.
Okay.
So we'll see. We'll see. I like for Ohio State to win this game, though.
All right. You heard it.
He's quiet.
Yeah.
He's got nothing to say. He's
Well,
speechless.
Well, I said all I needed to say from the start. So
All right. Well, we appreciate
McSwirly.
Okay. All right.
Heisman.
Heisman. All right. Yeah. Just give him the trophy, right? Okay. We appreciate you guys watching this week. Another week of J&M Sports Talk. Be sure to check out the after show. Should
Yep.
have an interesting discussion topic for you guys.
Yep. All right.
All right.
Later,
See you guys
guys.
next week.